Hi guys, and welcome to the first episode of content in forever. On today's show, I speak with the wonderful returning guest, Twitch streamer, content creator, and just a great friend in general, and that is BlueAssegai. You might know him, you might not. Had a great time chatting with him. Highly recommend checking him out. If you enjoyed the video, please do all the things, subscribe, like, comment. Give us your opinion on things. There might be a few hot takes in there, a few cold takes. Either way, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get into it. Thanks, guys. You went from West Coast to East Coast, and then you were East Coast, and then you came back.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I'm someone who's moved around a lot, so there's no judgment here or anything like that. And I'm a pretty transient guy too. What happened? What's going on?
Dude, I had like this job offer that I moved over to the East Coast for, and then they were like, never mind. So I was out there for a while. I was like, okay, I'll try it out. Then I was like, if I'm out here for this particular reason and I'm not having this thing be a thing, then I should just probably go back.
Yeah.
And so I went back. And the go back was crazy because I drove back.
You drove across the country.
I drove across the country by myself, and the States is like, I don't know, 3,500 miles or something like that, something wild.
Huge.
And I did it in 2 days.
Did you sleep? Did you sleep?
No,
I was gonna say, to do that in 2 days, man.
That experience was so... I learned a lot about myself, but also about like where I live, and also had so many more questions. As much as I found the answers to shit just in that experience, I got a lot more questions about shit.
Right.
Just doing that by myself.
So, firstly, what was the route? Like, what path did you take? Because you were in Washington, right? DC.
Yeah, I was in DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went through DC and God, I don't know. I went south for a little bit and then just went straight west. Like I hit states that I'd never been to and probably will never be to again, like Nebraska, Idaho, Wyoming. And also some of these places are so beautiful. Like I would be just like driving and like Utah. I'd never been to Utah. I had no interest in ever being to fucking Utah in my life. Like you drive through Salt Lake and there's just a mountain.
Yeah. Just
right there. And it's right in front of your face, because Oregon is also like very nature oriented. But this was like, oh, that's a mountain right the fuck there. It was really crazy.
So in terms like the mountains right there when you're in Salt Lake City, it's kind of over
the city. Just it's like you just spit at that thing and hit it. It's just like so weird driving through Nebraska and it's super flat and there's no one else there, and just like weird shit. Like I was in Wyoming for a bit before I got around like the Yellowstone area, and I remember pulling off to like this gas station and my tank was on E, which was like really stupid because like it got to a point where the gas stations were like 100 miles apart.
Oh Jesus!
And for whatever reason I just bypassed. I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. So like I get
what's
to
the
this
worst thing that could happen?
I mean, really? Just run out of gas on the highway in Nebraska. And it's like I get to this spot and there's like, oh, it's like really cool. It's really pretty. There's like these rolling hills and there's like this rest spot. It's very peaceful and tranquil. And I hop out the car and I'm just like chilling here. And this was like day 2. So I'd been on like maybe 2 hours of sleep in the car or something at a rest stop with a glaring white light at my face. So I'm low key like loopy. I'm manic at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, whatever. And I see this sign. It's like rattlesnakes. It's like there's snakes. I'm like, oh, that's cool, dude. That's cool.
Okay.
And I'm walking, and there's like these placards that are telling about the history of like the Native Americans and the history of the state and whatnot. I'm like, oh, that's dope. And they have them laid out on this like winding path that's very peaceful and tranquil. And you're walking down a path and you're feeling away. You know, you're feeling like you're on an adventure. So I'm walking down this path and I'm reading these placards, and they're like, no, there's snakes. There's another sign. I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's cool. So I'm like a city dude. Like I grew up in New York City. I lived in Portland for a while. I don't know what the fucking snake. I've seen like 2 snakes in my life. It's like, oh, there's snakes, whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's something out of like a Robinson Crusoe book or something like that.
Exactly. Well, snakes, whatever. And like maybe literally half a mile into like beyond the truck stop now. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere, Wyoming, half a mile down into like these rolling hills, and I hear this. I'm like, yo, the fuck is that?
Sounds kind of like a rattle.
And then, and I hear it on my left, and I hear it on my right, and in front of me, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by rattlesnakes, bro. It wasn't one, it wasn't two, I'm to like 4 or 5 directions. I take off sprinting back to the car.
Hey, good move.
Sprinting, and I just hear this shit shaking. So like stuff like that.
So
really fun stories.
So yeah, snakes do freak me out. I've had a couple of encounters in my life with snakes, which is always weird, right? It's like you think, if you've lived in urban or pseudo-urban environments for any elongated period of time, the thought that you can just have encounters like these, that they're just, if you go to certain places, you will just encounter shit, like it's kind of weird, and we're sort of disconnected from that. But I had like a pseudo-urban upbringing in a town of 30,000 that was a beach town in Western Australia that's surrounded by nothing. And so you are still very much there's paddocks and there's just fucking sand dunes everywhere. And it's not super developed, if you know what I mean. And
right.
Though it is sort of quote unquote first world, you have a lot of the amenities and whatnot. So it's sort of a half deal. But there were snake encounters there, and some of them will kill you. Like there's killers out there, and it's just that they weird me out, like of all the things, man, because you can't really, their movements are so bizarre, and right. I'm always wary of them. Like I've seen a couple of them on like sand dunes, kind of like just like go headed off somewhere, and then they go into the water, and you're like, is that an eel or a snake? What the fuck is that? That's just next thing is just gonna fly on me or something.
Right.
But the thing that the one thing I learned is that like you basically want to, and I'm not a survival expert, but you basically want to avoid the encounter happening by tromping hard on the ground so they feel the vibrations of your approach and they go, oh, there's some big shit here. Because a lot of the time I think the situation, like when you come across one, they're like, oh fuck as well. And they go into kind of mode because it's like, well, what the fuck is this thing up to now? Like, and so it just turns into this standoff that neither party really wanted a piece of.
Right.
But like that's where the things can kind of happen. But snakes, the thought of snakes, I was in a place called the Cathedral Ranges, which is about an hour, probably 2 hours east of Melbourne, and beautiful, really nice. Like we camped out there. It's like type of place where you wake up and there's like kangaroos eating like shit by your, like just next to your tent or whatever. It's like quite picturesque and lovely.
We have raccoons over here, but that's fine. You got kangaroos eating. That's fine. Okay. Stun on me a little harder.
Hey, man, I like the squirrel. I like when I went over there, it was the squirrels for me. I know no one gives a shit about them over there, or a lot of people are like, yeah, what? But like you can tell an Aussie tourist because they'll just watch squirrels. Like it just seems so cool to them because we don't.
You don't have those over there? Squirrels?
No, not really. Like we have all kinds of like little mammal marsupial things, but we have we got possums. Not opossums, because I've seen your opossums. Those things. There's something else. But we've got these cuter versions over here, possums.
Okay.
Like there's in my backyard right now. Like sometimes at night you'll see one. Like it just like there's big trees next door, and they'll kind of like come across and just eat shit and try and take a dump on your head if you're sitting beneath them. But I was in the Cathedral Ranges, and a friend and I were sort of climbing them, and it's a pretty chill climb until it's not, and then it gets to these sheer cliff faces, and we got to this point where there's a grave for someone who died there, and that was when I started questioning how much further we should go, like because it got a little just at the top. You're like, oh, this is now kind of a mountain at this point. Like I'm not really an expert. I don't mind scaling a rock or two, but the one other takeaway, the thing that really sent the fear into my heart, was about an hour into the climb or an hour into the ascent, my friend's like, how many snakes do you think in total there are on this mountain? under all of these rocks and hidden behind all these things. And the thought came to me, there were thousands of them there. Like
too many.
And so, yeah, snakes freak me out. Much more than spiders, much more than anything on land in Australia. Snakes, for sure.
Those are important moments. Like, I had a couple moments where I almost died, like driving across the country. I was like really scared of something, or was really outside of my comfort zone. And those moments where you have that thought where you're like, oh, this is like not safe, or there are other things outside of myself here. Like, I'm not top of the food chain here.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, those moments are really like self-discovery, weird mind things.
Totally.
So that's pretty dope. Yeah.
Totally. It's, you kind of get put in your place sometimes. Like,
Exactly.
all of you could be anyone, you could be someone who has control over an entire nation, someone who like runs sends terror through the hearts and minds of millions. But if you start some shit with a snake and it's just you and the snake, they don't give a fuck about who you are.
You're gonna have a tough time.
It's suddenly human and snake. Like, you're just
Right.
reduced to your animal kind of thing. And it's I think that's what's kind of so scary about it as well. Like, all your self-assuredness kind of goes out the window unless you're like good at being a base human or whatever. There was something you mentioned before when you were traveling, talking about traveling across, before I'd hijacked the conversation talking about snakes, where you were talking about just the landscapes and the nature where you were going through. And it sort of brought this idea to my mind. Like, do you think now that when we think of places, do you think now we think more of the culture than of the place itself?
100%. And I think that's like such an ego thing. You know what? I have this conversation from time to time with myself, because I don't have friends. Like,
Hey, man, you got me.
that's true. I was like, I'm talking to a friend right now.
Come on.
But like, geography is such an underappreciated part of the human experience and human interactions. And I actually, that struck me a lot when I was traveling across the country, because it's like, how far, like, I feel like the internet has made the world so small for us in some way, but to a point where we don't realize how big it actually still is.
Yeah.
Like, just because I can interact with you and you're in Australia and I'm in the fucking States, I feel like maybe there's an element of taking it for granted.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's 11 p.m. where I am right now. I don't know what fucking time it is for you, but you're like in the future. You know what I mean? That's like kind of crazy. And cultural differences, ideological differences, religious differences, what you call milk, where you're from, you know, how you pronounce, like, all these things go into the human experience and your life experience, and these anecdotal things that happen that shape who you are as a person. And that totally gets completely thrown out the window, I think.
Yeah.
And is like replaced with whatever we kind of see or feel or experience on the internet.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever we create, right? And
Yeah.
spaces become more about, like, this space is about a conversation and whatever we can both create within that sort of imaginary space. I think a lot of, Twitch is gaming, obviously. So much of it is either is that space, well, we don't understand, I don't know exactly what it's like to be in Turkey and to grow up and to have Turkish parents and to be in the education system and to have whatever those, think that combination of elements are. But we both know fucking Vardenfell, and we can both kind of like focus in on that. So yeah, it really is a like a reduction or like an erasure. It just pushes everything else to the side. Do you think, hold on one moment, but I do have a question for you that if you want to think about as I grab my bottle open, my lighter, which I'm going to use to open my beer. Do you think that is net positive or net negative?
I think that the inherent pattern recognition within human beings, especially when it comes to like grasping for those connections with other people. I think that's a positive thing. And I think it's a positive thing because one of my favorite podcasts is called I Am Athlete. It's a bunch of old retired NFL players sit down and talk about shit.
I Am Athlete.
And Fred, it's so good. Fred Taylor, he has a saying, he's like, exposure leads to expansion. So it's like the more common ground in terms of that quote, like the more common ground we can find, like we're literally across the world from each other, but we both know what Vardenfell is. We've both experienced that cool thing. We have our own thoughts and feelings and ideas about what that cool thing is and how we go about navigating it. Being able to key in and lock in on that common denominator is such a dope thing and such an inherent part of the human experience. But like everything else, it's like a spectrum because we fall into, I feel like as people, we fall into those things and we find others who we identify with or who have similar ideologies and we're like, ah, cool, like it's cool to meet you. And then people who like, someone's like, Marwin fucking sucks, fuck Vardenfell. You know, like you and I are like, what? Like we could get together and be like, yo, fuck that guy.
Yeah, that
you know what I'm saying?
Stinks, man.
That guy blows. So all of a sudden there's like a me and Porto, like a Blue and Porto clan that loves Vardenfell, and then the anti-Vardenfell clan, and then he's got some other anti-Vardenfell people, and now all of a sudden it's like some tribal shit going on.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
And that's when it gets negative.
Yes.
You know.
Oh, man, that's it. And but then it's like we just do that though, right? Like that's how do you, unless you sort of, you know, do what some people are trying to do and just censor communication and just like remove language and do all this kind of shit. Like it just seems that is the way. Like we seek similarity, be it based on whatever the fuck it is we value. We seek similarity of values, of pastimes, of art, of things we like to consume, of just spaces we like to be in, of music we like, so on and so forth. And we band together. However that is. And sometimes it might be arbitrary, the thing that we choose to band together over and value. But then like that shit just happens, right? Like I've seen that happen in, let me give you an example, like a non-gaming example is Melbourne as a city is, well, I don't know what it is now, but back when it was a real city, seriously, back when it was a real city, that's a whole nother podcast. But,
sounds like me in Portland. Fucking God.
Fucking hell, man. I've heard tales of Portland too. But back when Melbourne was a city, it would consider itself a very kind of, I guess, the quote unquote cultural hub of Australia, right? And what that really means is, well, that's partially just marketing shtick because it has shit weather and they need to compete with Sydney somehow as a destination. But that also becomes a reality in a sense because people buy into that and so they sort of create the lie. And so Melbourne is very much like the musician city. It is the place where you will see a lot of the best bands. A lot of the best bands are based here. A lot of our sort of legendary artists, at least half of them came from here, I would say. Don't fact check me on that, but you know, it's a more than any other city, more than Sydney, and the other cities are smaller. So that then sort of leads to a bit of sceniness, though. So like, I personally, when it comes to music, I would say I have probably a more open mind than I do when it comes to gaming. I would say I like a wider range of things in the musical space. There is some shit that still grinds my gears that I just think is like giving me cancer as I listen to it. But you know what I mean? But for the most part, like I love good jazz. I love good like classic rock. I love like even some metal to an extent, you know. I love fucking a lot of like hip hop music, though not all of it. I like funk. I like reggae. I like even like some old folk stuff. I think is pretty cool. I love classical music. Like so much music I find is really appealing to me. Even like 80s kind of new wave shit, like that's dope as well. So like I tend to go, like I would go to different scenes when I would go to see music a lot of the time. But sometimes I wouldn't be wearing the right uniform. Like if you go to a, I wouldn't be wearing, the cultural signifiers that say I am in on this identity, because people like to go in. And so I might be dressed, let's say, as I am now, which is, sort of fairly neutral, but I guess it might lend itself towards someone who's into like, it's not really a rock look, I would say, the way I'm dressed right now. Not in Melbourne anyway. If I were to go to a certain like rock gig, people might not like want to interact with me as much. And this is obviously a bit of a generalization. There are nice people in any scene, and there are really welcoming people, but I experienced a lot of the time not being enough of a thing, like enough of the brand to fit in. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know. Oh man, I know on a lot of levels. Actually, as a first generation American, like there's a thing over here where you're like, if your parents are from somewhere else, but you're like the first person or one of the first people born here in America, that's a thing where you're just maybe not quite enough of that and too much of this, but you're not enough of this to fit in with the people here.
Fuck.
So like I feel that on a lot of levels, and that kind of like permeates, I mean, all aspects of your life from that point. Like I have a Mexican American homie who's like, connecting with the Mexican roots, but also like they were born in America. One of my favorite YouTubers is like, he's Haitian, went to Haiti for the first time when he was like 40 years old. He's like, but like, I'm Haitian. I'm here interacting with these people, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, you're never enough for one thing, or maybe you're too much of another thing. And it's just like identity. Identity is such a crazy word these days.
Yes.
It's so integrated into like what it means to be a person. And it's something I think about often, especially, I know you're not on Twitter, but like if you ever peruse Twitter is like the identity politics capital of the world.
God. People
are very, very proud and upfront with who they are as people and what they feel makes them who they are.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like in people's Twitter profiles, it'll be proud Republican, proud Democrat, liberal, this, that, and the third, anarchist, like, people's sexuality, their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, everything that they feel makes them who they are as a person is just like pushed to the forefront.
Yeah.
And like is the first thing that you see. And it ties back into like what we were talking about before, as far as like finding people with like thoughts and like ideas and things like that. It's just, I completely forgot what the fuck we were talking about. But
so no, I want to keep you on this. So we're talking about like this idea that people band together over one thing, but we find an other. We need to like divide, and it's like to be an us, there must be a them, I guess.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being a them. I just think that we should probably all be more used to the them at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is
yeah.
It's like there's always going to be a them, and we should all know this by now because we're all adults. You know what I'm saying? And how we interact with them is more important than the fact that there's a them.
Yep.
We always know there's going to be a them. So how are we coexisting on Earth?
And we needed them to be us.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know what I mean?
I think so.
Like,
I mean,
like you need, if the very fact of getting excited over someone knowing Vardenfell and knowing Morrowind, or knowing, being really into Dark Souls in my case, or being really into Fallout games, or being really into whatever, being really into Black Sabbath or whatever the fuck, really into something. The very excitement over that is because that's not an expected thing with people.
Like me in '76.
Exactly. Whenever the day comes that you actually meet someone else who likes that game, it's going to be really amazing for you. I haven't played
Legit.
it. I haven't played it.
I'm still searching. I'm still searching. No one else liked that shit.
They're out there for you, man. They're out there for you.
I think
so. Yeah. I got something I really wanted to talk with you about, just to move it forward a little bit. So, time is something that always, I mean, you see it play out today. Like I'm always at odds with time. It's a constant battle in my life. I assume it is for everybody, but some people seem to deal with it better than others. Some people externally don't have an issue with it at all. And even if I have all the time, I somehow have less of the time, despite the fact that I try to be productive. It's an odd thing. And I've sort of been trying to map it out for myself a lot lately. And I wanted to ask you what sort of things take priority in your life. And some of the things I've been thinking about are like, we've got like life admin that you have to do, and that's sort of a must to sort of keep afloat in the world. Career, obviously, family, social lives, physical activity, leisure, streaming if you're doing what we're doing, or I know also you're creative as well, like art, music, things like that. How do you navigate and balance? Do any of these things take a priority, or is it something that's in flux?
Oh boy.
Did I just open the can of worms?
Yeah, it's over now. As of right now, and as far back as I can think in terms of like recent times, legit anxiety and depression and trying to like combat those things 100% have taken priority over literally everything else that you've mentioned.
Wow.
And it's funny because when it comes to family, when it comes to streaming, when it comes to like the life admin shit, career shit, like the mental state that you're in, completely, it's the umbrella that all that shit falls under.
Yep.
So if that's not on point, all of that shit suffers. So I've been having like moments in time, less so than I had before, but where I'm just like stuck in bed and can't fucking move. Like I can't get out of bed. I don't know why. I can't talk myself out of it. I can't rah-rah myself out of it. I'll sit in bed. I'll try to watch like an inspirational video, like some David Goggins shit or something, try to get myself hyped up, some Eric Thomas. Like, and will have to force myself to get up and try to be productive. Force myself to get up and like get to work. Force myself to stream. Force myself to literally like be a human being. Like low key, not even low key, straight up. I just showered for the first time in like 3 days. It's like, oh, okay, I'm about to talk to Porto real quick. Let me go ahead and brush my teeth, shower. You know what I'm saying? Like,
now, I'm flattered that you would clean yourself up for me.
I'm just, let me go ahead and wash my ass because I'm about to talk to Porto. Let me go ahead and wash my ass real quick. But it's like that.
The nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I know people I've known for years that wouldn't give me that fucking.
That wouldn't shower for you, right?
No.
Man, so that's taken like a huge priority for me, is like taking care of my mental health and trying to make sure that I'm like able to do literally anything else. Yes. But once we get past that, I think my main thing is just really wanting to live a full life and experience as much as possible and be as far outside of my comfort zone as possible while still being productive. So like art and music and like streaming and all that stuff is super important to me. It's a huge part of who I am as a person. Like I feel super at home in front of a camera and just like playing video games or talking or doing this. Like I think it's great. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do, you know, and I don't know why.
Well, let's unpack this a little bit, because I think this is something that a lot of people who've done it for some extended period with some sort of consistency, and maybe even people who've done it once or twice, I'm not sure, would agree that there's something sort of intangible that's hard about it, right? So I've thought about this myself. Sometimes it seems like the easiest fucking thing on earth. You fire up a thing, you get it looking however it looks. You do all your little pre-stuff. You do all this business. You make sure the masking tape that literally holds your stream together is in place. You do all these things. You fire it up. You chat with people who you know. You meet a few more people who you know. You play a game that hopefully you really like. You meet some new friends along the way. You laugh. You have fun. It's leisure time. Sometimes it might give you some financial support. Or you might see some creative opportunities in it and some room to expand. Sounds great, but sometimes it is really hard. Sometimes it's hard to... Sometimes I feel bad afterwards. Sometimes I feel...
Post-stream?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I feel if it didn't go the way I wanted it to. I've had this... maybe not a mask, but I've had my business face on or my stream face on, and then by the time when it's over, I sometimes just go, oh, and then I have to reevaluate my entire life, for the millionth time. So what is that? What is that with you?
I 100% identify with that. I think I'll have moments, and we talk about this sometimes off stream. Like I'm like, I want to be as real as possible while I'm doing this, and as myself as possible. Because once you have to like code switch or put on like a certain face or a mask to do specific things, it becomes taxing. Yeah. Even if it's something as fun as playing video games and meeting new people, the second you have to invest emotional and mental energy in checking yourself. And being aware of what you say and aware of what you do and making sure or at least being cognizant of whether or not you're entertaining, it takes away. It's not something that's additive. Whereas if you're hanging out with the homies, if we weren't talking or we weren't on stream, like when me, you, and Ez and Spud were playing fucking Divinity. Clearly this cider is hitting.
That's basically my entire recollection of Divinity.
It was just the homies hanging out. We were playing a game. We were having fun. We were doing whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to if we were streaming it or playing for other people or what is it. And that aspect of it, the fact that it takes... Even though it's fun, even though it's rewarding, even though there's slight monetary gain from it, the fact that it takes energy, I'm aware of the fact that it takes energy, sometimes makes it take more energy than it's necessary. You know what I mean? I'm aware of the fact that I'm maybe doing something here that I wouldn't normally do, or smiling when I don't feel like smiling, or interacting with someone when I don't feel like interacting with them.
Yeah.
You know? And the fact that I'm aware of it and the fact that I'm thinking about it makes it all the more draining.
Yes. Okay.
And that's how it is for me.
So, totally agree. It's that social facade a little bit that takes away from the whole thing. As it's supposed to be a fun time, and that's I guess that's depending on the streamer. That's you're kind of selling this fun time, like come join me on this fun time I'm having. But as soon as you kind of get taken out of that, it can kind of spiral a little bit, right? Like you can kind of, I've been in several of those spirals where it's just gone out of hand and I've become quite toxic. And I'm generally a pretty nice guy, I think, but it affects me as well. But here's the thing, right? I was recently I just wanted to get out in the world and just because we've been fucking in this lockdown forever, and I have some other opportunities coming my way, but they've been taking a while to process in terms of international work, and fingers crossed on that shit. But I got a job at basically a liquor store, which, I've been a teacher for a decade. It's kind of I don't want to say a step back, but it's a step elsewhere, let's say, into a complete different realm that I didn't expect to be in at this point in my life. But I'm like, fuck it. Like, I should just go out and get a few bucks a week doing this shit. And that mask that I had to put on there, the work mask that you have to put on in any place of work, it's kind of similar, right? Or do you think that's different?
It's different. That's like an American colloquialism. Like it's literally the same, but I'm saying that's different isn't to say that like that's hard. That's fucking that's not
Ah,
something
I
that's
see.
yeah, like that's different,
That's
you
different.
know?
I got
Like
you. I got you.
yeah.
So, but then at the same time, that's sometimes when I finish work, even as a teacher, right? Like when I was getting decent bucks, and there you can have some really interesting relationships with people. You have some bad days where like some fucked up shit happens. You know, you just see like some dark shit in a kid's head, and you see some weird interactions, and someone says something, you realize something really bad about them, or confronting about them, and you know, because you're just meeting with people, right? And they're often quite in a vulnerable state because you're in a position of pseudo power, you know, in this relationship.
Authority.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mr. Porto.
well, I was
Professor Porto.
the biggest. I was the biggest walk. You know, you could walk over me on day 3, but you know, still we got the job done. But even after the hardest day where you really want to fucking just fucking asshole, like you know, have this like fuck that person, you know, but you don't, because you're a professional, and you realize that people are different, and you have to deal with different types of people, and some people are going to be challenging, and all these things that you and I know. But at the end of the day, I would finish, and I would usually be able to just go, whatever, and push it to the side and go, that's okay, that's part of the thing. But for some reason with streaming, I'm not as easily able to do that. I'm not as easily able to sort of let it go. Why do you think that might be? Or firstly, do you know what I'm saying? And secondly, do you know why that might be?
I know exactly what you mean. I think a part of that comes from the fact that we've probably been playing video games for like decades now.
Yeah.
Like we started out as kids playing video games for fun, by ourselves, with other kids, as a means of escape, as a means of dealing with shit, entertainment. So for us, doing this now for other people on camera, etc., it's not the same as a job, because it's like, this is something I've done for a really, really long time for myself.
Okay.
Irrespective of other people and their perspectives and entertaining other people and shit. So when something goes wrong with this, it's like if LeBron has a bad night, he's just missing layups. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing this shit for decades. So it hits a little different than, I'm sure you're passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about my career outside of streaming and shit, but it's like, it hits a little different when you've been doing something for a really long time and it's not going good.
Yeah.
When you think you're a decent or personable or relatively entertaining person, when you like video games, whatever, and you have a bad stream, or you're not feeling great, you're not interacting with people well. Because maybe that ties back into that identity conversation.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, oh, this is who I am. This is something that should come second nature by now. I've put in more than my 10,000 hours. I'm not an asshole most of the time. so
that's
so why is
most of the time.
most of the time.
Most of the time.
So why is this so hard right now?
Yeah.
Why am I having trouble with this particular aspect of my life, which is something I've been doing for really long. It's something I enjoy very much. And for all intents and purposes, it's something I should be really good at by now.
Yes. That's confronting to have to think of.
It is.
Late stage capitalism where we are the product. And that's hard when the product isn't selling. Like if I'm trying to sell my mouse to somebody, like, oh, you know, look at this mouse. It's got 2 buttons and there's a little
wireless.
It's wireless. Tired of the tyranny of wires. You know, if someone says, nah, not really into that, it's kind of like, I've seen better. Okay, well, maybe I didn't do a good job with the sales pitch. But maybe just it isn't that good. Maybe the product's the problem. But if you're trying to sell yourself as a product,
and the product is you and it's not good, that's a fucking problem.
That's a problem. That's a problem. And it could be you, or it could be you. That's the two things, right? It could be that you're not doing a good job selling the product, which is you, which is your fault. Or it could be that you are just a shit product, which is your fault and even more
piece
miserable.
of shit, bro.
You know?
I do know. And that actually ties into
confront. Sorry.
Yeah, that ties into something I wanted to talk about as well, which is cancel culture.
All right, let's go.
Which is like the hot topic
let's go.
Of the 21st century.
Let's do it.
Which is like, yo, if you're really, really good at what you do and you're affecting lives in some sort of positive way, do you know anyone who's really excellent in their field that's been canceled? I don't think it happens. I think if you're really, really good at what you're doing, you're providing a service to people that they value so much. I don't think you can get canceled. I don't think that happens. It's only mediocre motherfuckers getting canceled.
Well, I think that, okay, I would throw, first of all, we need to determine what it means to actually officially be cancelled. Because there's a lot of people who have, whoever they are, the cancel people, have tried to cancel and have been sort of maybe in some people's eyes cancelled. And then I think there's people who have just been completely cancelled. So the first person that comes to my mind when I think of cancel culture is someone who I'm like, really? Like, was Louis.C.K.
Ooh, we're getting in the deep end now. Okay.
Yeah, was Louis.C.K.
You're about to get yourself canceled right now. Go ahead.
No one gives a fuck about me. No one cares about me. Firstly, I think I don't really want to talk about what he did or didn't do. Okay. What I read about what he did or didn't do and what I heard about what he did or didn't do doesn't sound like there was any crime. Sounds like he was a bit of a weirdo and there was some subjectivity involved in it and some assumed power relations which people subsequently use to their own advantage. Because you can always, just invent power relations and say, well, I felt obliged, like, sure, whatever. But not to say that, like, from every lie there is a truth, right? Like, so for the things that have been tossed at someone who gets cancelled, that's pointing to a real evil that occurs in the world that should be taken seriously. And so you kind of you can't say, oh, fuck that, that's not real, because then it seems like you're saying the thing is not real. Like, there's all kinds of pieces of shit in the world. I'm not saying that. But wow. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean. Like, this exists in the world on a scale that's fucked up. So, and it resembles this, which kind of qualifies it to be lumped in with that.
Yes. If you reject the validity of this, then you are for that. And therefore, You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to... This is why, like, you say, like, if I talk about this... The good news is I'm not even relevant. I'm already effectively less popular than someone who has been cancelled, so it doesn't really matter. But, like... you know what I mean? Which is a nice place to be in ways, but...
Shout out to anonymity.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the I think that's the reason that you can't, like, go, well, I don't know about these things. But at the same time, I don't know because I don't know the people involved. So, like, right. Who knows? But the reason I brought up Louis C.K. was I feel like he was exceptional in his field.
He was.
I feel like he was exceptional in his field. I don't know to what extent he's been cancelled, though, because he's kind of back.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe he never really got cancelled. They tried, yeah.
No. His cancellation was him taking some time to fucking do some reevaluation, figure some shit out. And then whenever he felt like coming back to comedy, he came back, and that was it.
Did you hear his first line in stand-up comedy when he was back?
No, what'd he say?
So how was your year? which is good. But I'm trying to think of other people who've effectively been cancelled. And I can't.
Shit doesn't happen, man.
Really think
what happens is if you say something that a group of people don't agree with, and nowadays it's the left. If you say some shit the left doesn't agree with, what happens is the people on the right will rally behind you if you're worth half of a shit, and then you'll be able to continue on with whatever you do, catering to a specific audience.
I see what you mean. Because there's a market that does value you.
Because there's a market that values you.
Stand up for you, and they were your market in the first place. So yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, cancel culture. It's do you ever worry about? Do you ever feel that you're being muzzled when speaking publicly?
All the time. But that's beyond. That's like some black people shit in America.
Really?
That's that's like that's like that's some other shit.
Really?
I did a little tweet and delete. One of my first tweet and deletes since being on Twitter, where I was like, oh God, let me phrase this so we can actually have this up on YouTube. So I've had like a weird influx of like foreign racists hopping into my stream, and I can super tell they're not American because they're bad at racism.
What do you mean?
Yo, Americans are really, really good at their racist shit.
Do you mean they're more really sophisticated or?
Their racism is more sophisticated.
Wow.
It'll be funnier. It'll be more cutting. It'll be more nuanced. Whereas if you're dealing with a foreign person, you can tell they're like trying to say some shit they maybe saw on TV or saw on the internet one or two times where they're trying to like get a jab in, and I'm like, all right, wow. I can tell what this is. Especially since I stream late at night. So in my head, I'm okay. Like you're in a different time. You're on some other type of time. But like, yeah, So I tweeted, I was like, yo, it's crazy. Like I can't say the N-word on Twitch, but like someone can hop into my stream and call me all types of N-word, roach, right? This, that, and the third, literally everything in their mother. And then I ban them or block them, and they can come back and just do it again under a different account.
Yeah, just create a new account in 5 minutes.
If they're bored enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's almost like, let's remove the political correctness from it completely.
Yep.
And I can completely be myself, and they can completely do whatever kind of trolling shit they want to do, and then we can just all be happy and say whatever the fuck we want to say and do what we want to do.
Well, and then you become the arbiter of your fucking existence, right? Like you take back control, because if you're like, no, fuck that, you're gone, you can fucking ban them or whatever. Even if they come back, you are then the person that gets to decide, I don't want that in my life. Not some overlords that decide for all of us, like what we all should have and what's good for people and what's bad for people. It gives the power back to the individual, or gives the power back to even a business or something like that. Like I totally respect the idea of there being maybe an organization where if you're in this place, you don't say that shit. You know what I mean? Like if you're in, because this is our property, this is our thing. You don't talk like that here. But I do prefer it on that decision should be made either on the role of the individual or the role of someone who like operates a space, be that physical or digital, because yeah, that's fucking crazy that you can't say stuff like that. Like, how can you remove? Like, what about music then? What about rap music? Like what the fuck? What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, that's an important point you talk, because like I know like YouTube and demonetization when it comes to certain topics, COVID is a big one, LGBTQ issues is a big one, racism and race in general is a big one, where like YouTube has moderators that'll go through and like demonetize people's videos based upon what they're saying, how they're saying it, and what the topic is. Twitch is another thing where it's like, you know, people are really kind of watching, and these private organizations, like I can't complain too much about Twitch because they've given me a platform to fucking play video games for people and make money.
Yep.
I can't complain too much about YouTube because they've given me for free. I don't pay for Twitch. I don't pay for YouTube. You know, we can talk about what you're paying with your data that they're stealing. I don't give a fuck about that data. We can be candid. None of us cares about our data, right? Nobody cares about their data. You can use YouTube for free. You can use Twitch for free. Tumblr for free, even though they got the porn off there, so it's not useful anymore. OnlyFans tried to do that shit.
I didn't know that shit.
What? Yo, Tumblr porn was fire.
Really?
You missed out. But actually, that takes me to like OnlyFans, where they're like, and that's like a great segue. It was like the people who utilize the platform are like, yo, if you take this out of here, we're leaving. I don't know if you heard about that, but Tumblr was trying to like remove pornography or something from its platform and have it try to be like more legitimate, like Patreon or something, because they wanted those advertising dollars. They wanted that legitimate ad money.
Yep.
And they're like, well, let's get some of this seedy or shit out of here. And people are like, then I'm not gonna have an OnlyFans account. And they had to take that shit back.
Yeah.
You
There's
know,
always, because
so
there's a market for it, right? Like there's always going to be, go back to the Prohibition era. If you ban liquor, then people are going to fucking find ways to make money off that shit. Because people want that. That's what they want, man. Got to give them what they want.
Exactly. Which ties back into the cancel culture fucking conversation. If people want you, they will find a way to get you, whether you're canceled or not, whether you're a piece of shit or not, whether you say this or that or the third, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. Yep. That's what do you think about the idea of people just being completely deplatformed? Do you think there's ever a reason for that to happen?
Yeah.
Yep.
100%. Like I said, you're on these, like, you don't own that shit.
Yep.
You know, it's not yours. If you say something that clearly goes against terms of service, or you're doing something that clearly goes against terms of service, like farting into a microphone, for example, on Twitch, you know, maybe at some point they were like, this isn't kind of what we have in or had in mind when we created this video game streaming platform. You know what I'm saying? And you get fucking banned for a week or a few days.
Yeah.
You can't get mad at Twitch for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nuance involved with all this shit. There's legitimacy to every side. If I want to fart into a fucking microphone and I have 15,000 people watching me do it and 5,000 of them are subbing and you're taking $2.50 out of every $5 sub, maybe you should let me fart into this fucking mic if I want to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If we're really doing this capitalist thing and this is kind of what we're going for, and as it turns out, I mean, those people won. All those people got unbanned. They're doing all the fucking mic farting, tongue licking, air, like, because
what the
money
fuck
talks.
is that, by the way? Like,
that shit is fire.
You're into that?
Don't you hate that shit? Is
you're
fire.
into that shit?
Listen, man.
Oh my god!
Who's that redheaded chick with the fucking horse mask? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I've seen. She's one of the big Asmarants.
Listen,
Asmarants.
Listen.
Asmarants.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I see where there's a... Go ahead and do your thing.
Look, if I'm a 14-year-old boy, I'm all over that.
Listen, 16, 18.
Oh, sure. That too. That
you know what I'm saying?
I'm not doing homework anymore. Fuck that.
What?
Asmarant's
Summer vacay?
live right now, you know?
She's online. She's got the horse mask on.
Yeah.
Look.
Damn.
You know?
I tell you what, though, fighting into the mic, like, I never... Look, if that's what people want, I believe in the market. If that's what you want, that doesn't hurt anyone, have at it. Enjoy the fart in your ears. I've never in my life... What? I don't know, man. I don't know, dude. I can't get down with that. It weirds me out. And even the ASMR stuff, it feels like... I actually don't really like... Even when someone's in the room, stuff too close to the ears, it's a bit much for me. But
it's weird.
It's like that's effectively what they're doing. Is if their mic is the conduit between this space and your ear hole, because that's kind of what it is, right? They're effectively like you're sitting sideways on the ground and they're squatting down, and just letting one go into your ear hole. Like that's what that is. And I don't care how hot somebody is. I don't want them to do that to you. I'm sorry. I don't want anyone to do that to me, man. But, you know, that's just me.
Each their own.
Each their own. Yeah, each their own. No, I don't think those people should be deplatformed at all. But if eventually, if the brand says this is not the space for it, then like you say, like anything, they'll find the space for it.
You find the space. You'll find the space. If she wanted to go to OnlyFans, if she wanted to go wherever the fuck she wanted to go, if she wanted to start her own website and do that shit and go that route, she would be able to, because she's amassed the fan base to do it and would be able to garner enough fan support to sustain her to make a living doing it. You know why? Because she's providing a fucking service that people are interested in and want to pay for.
Yeah.
So she can do it on Twitch, she could do it on OnlyFans, she could do it on YouTube, she could do it on whatever, Amaranth.com. Like, because people are looking for her. You can't get rid of shit that's valuable to people, irrespective of if you feel it's valuable personally, or, you know, whether it aligns with your moral, you know, values or your ideologies. If someone looks forward to something, if I open up my phone right now, like, yo, I want to see a Porto stream. If you're not on Twitch for whatever reason, you know what I'll do? I'll find you on YouTube. I'll find you on OnlyFans. I'll find you on Patreon because I want to see a Portal stream and no one else's. You know what I mean? You can't really cancel that.
I know exactly.
You can't cancel that. When Dr. Disrespect got off Twitch, you know what I did? I went right to YouTube and followed his ass.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch you on YouTube then.
Yeah. That was a whole fucking thing, wasn't it?
I still don't know what the fuck that was.
No one knows what that was. People were like, he did some fucked up shit.
Degenerate shit.
I don't know what that was, but it couldn't have been. I think it's just all money, right? Like
It's always about money.
It's always about money, right? Like, I used to think of 99 out of 100 questions, the answer is money, and I used to think of that with conviction, right? About 5 years ago, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely true. Now I think of it with even more conviction, but I think it's more like 99.5.
Oh yeah, it's up there.
It's huge. Like
it's huge,
and not just on these like businesses, people on a micro scale. Oh man, all over the fucking place. Like I didn't realize.
As it should be though. As it should be, because we all need to eat. We all need to pay our rent. We all need there's an essence of the game that needs to be played, and there should be an appreciation for said game.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because we all need to be realistic. Matter of fact, let me take it somewhere completely left.
Please, let's go.
I was listening to that same podcast, actually. It was like I Am Athlete. They were talking about, in America, there's this big pseudo movement, kind of like ideology. There's momentum behind. There's like the Black Lives Matters, this, that, kneel for the national anthem, et cetera, et cetera. And there's people like, all these millionaires, you need to sacrifice that $1 million NFL contract, or that $1 million NBA contract, this, that, and the third, to stand up for what you believe in, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, we need to be realistic about how the game is played. BlueAssegai, who makes $150 a month or whatever on streaming on Twitch. I can say that now because Twitch got hacked or whatever. So motherfuckers know what I make anyway, right? Sure. So $150 on Twitch, right, a month. Me going ahead and utilizing my platform to say some sideways shit is different from someone who makes 120, 250, $500 million. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't want these people who are making $500 million to jeopardize their jobs to spread a message. Their job is finance. Their job is monetary contributions. Their job is behind the scenes work. Because we live in a capitalistic society, right? We don't want the billionaires and the millionaires to sacrifice themselves for those of us who aren't making that money, because any kind of revolution, any kind of movement that needs to happen societally or ideologically, it needs to be financed by people who have jobs that are making good money, right? There's this, I don't know what it is, there's like pervasive attitude where it's like, oh, you have this huge platform, you need to sacrifice yourself for all of us. It's like, no, keep getting that bread, and then let's figure out a way to make some changes. I seen a tweet the other day where George Clooney has a satellite like fucking pointing at Sudan to keep track of like war crimes or some shit like that. Did you know George Clooney had a satellite to keep track of Sudanese war crimes?
I know that he has his own tequila brand. So he's got a lot of things. I did not know about the Sudanese war crime satellite, though. But
you know why you didn't know? Because the motherfucker is rich, and he's using his money to facilitate change in ways that he can with that money. If George Clooney came out and got himself fucked up in corporate America or whatever it was and got his bag messed up with Keurig or his tequila brand or whatever, and all of a sudden he wasn't making millions of dollars doing that, you think he could afford to have satellites floating over Sudan keeping track of war crimes? No. We need to, like, there's got to be, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think people are going to be people ultimately. Like I'm listening to what you're saying, and there's a lot of really good points there, and I'm trying to think of which point to focus on. But I think you have to let people be people. That's an example of somebody using their position that they may have earned, they may have got lucky into, it may have been a combination of both, probably more likely a combination of both, and they're using that for what sounds like a really good thing. That sounds like that can't hurt the world. Well, I guess everything can be flipped to hurt people, but like from what I hear, that sounds like a positive. And
Positive, yeah.
That's an example of someone using that for good because they've got their own free will to do so, and that's awesome. We could find another example where someone used that same thing for some fucking shitty shit, you know, some dirty poop. But like
literally,
yeah, absolutely. But ultimately, it's their fucking decision to make, and they have to live with it. Like when public opinion says you should because you are, like when people are punished for being in prominent positions and made to feel that they therefore owe something to society. In the words of, and this is this is a little bit hypocritical me saying this, but in the words of one of my favorite recording artists of all time, a guy called Rock Marciano,
love Rock Marciano.
Fuck giving back, ain't nobody give me jack. I think it was fuck giving back, ain't nobody give me jack.
That's the line. That is it.
And that, I know that sounds really selfish, but also
not if you live in the real world.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, where were people helping him before he got his thing? And now people are going to tell him to act a certain way. Where the fuck were you?
100%.
Where were you? So
check this out. My name is Porto. You wake up tomorrow, I don't know, you get raided by fucking Tfue, Asmongold, Amaranth a couple times, whatever.
Immediately become a fart into the mic guy.
You've got 100,000 followers, like 10K subs.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you have a platform. And with that platform, you have some actual power to affect some actual change. What is Porto doing? Or what is Porto not doing? What does Porto not give a fuck about? Yo, it's so underrated to admit that you don't fucking care about something. It's so like some or even not even that you don't care, but just don't have the emotional or mental energy to focus on it in a moment in time, in any given moment in time.
Yeah.
Because once you get into that position, it's gonna be like, well, why didn't you change your Instagram square black on Tuesday to show support for this, or why aren't you talking about that?
I hate that shit, man. I fucking hate that shit. Let me tell you. So before I don't want to segue too hard from what you're saying because it is interesting. Do it. But I fucking hate that shit. When I was, look, let me tell you something about me, and you probably already know this about me.
Yeah.
Man, I don't fucking hate anyone for being. Just, you know what I mean? If someone is just being, what the fuck do I have to hate them for? You know, that's the most absurd notion ever to me. It just doesn't make sense in my mind. I don't know if it's just natural or I was raised a certain way. I was raised around a ton of weirdos. There's a lot of weirdness in my life and a lot of not along any kind of spectrum, just how the fuck are you like that kind of stuff in my life. So there's no reason for me in my heart to have anything against anybody based on something that they just are, unless that thing happens to cause direct harm to people. Unless that thing happens to be, well, you were born a psychopath, so unfortunately I'm not a fan of you. You know what I mean? Like, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I consider myself the epitome of live and let live. That's just who I am. But I don't know if it's a but when I was working in a corporate environment, because the education system, especially the higher education, university, post-tertiary shit in Australia has become very corporate. We were in the campus of where I was working was, it's inner city corporate space that had been converted into classrooms and this big office. To be fair, it's not the university. It's a branch of the university outside of it, but it still was a big place. It had like thousands of students at a time, but it was a very corporate environment where it was and how it played out. You could have walked into the office and thought we were anything, a marketing firm, a fucking tax organization, whatever it is. But so there was this thing that there's a great range of people that worked there. You know, that's the cool thing about ESL teachers. They tend to originate from different places because a lot of them, English wasn't their first language. They were just language aficionados, right? They just studied language. They often non-English first speakers tend to be better English language teachers because they understand the mechanisms of the language as a like on a structural level rather than inherently as we do. So you have this great mix of people from all kinds of nationalities, most of whom are not from Australia, and a lot of people from, you know, just completely different walks of life. You know, there's a big LGBT sort of presence there, I guess, just because the type of person who experiences different cultures and moves around a lot is kind of more likely to be open with who they are or something like that. I'm not sure, but there was a big range of people. It was lovely. It was awesome. But there was also this corporate kind of enforcement of their ideologies in this real like, we stand for LGBT. We do this. And in order to show that you do, you will wear a rainbow lanyard. And they didn't force you to, but they you know, they encourage you to.
Of course, yeah.
To show that you're an ally. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm not an ally. There's no fucking war. Like, I'm whose enemy am I? I'm friends. You know, like, one of my best friends is a gay man. Like, but I don't need to wear a fucking badge for that. That's just a person that I'm like. None of this shit means shit to me. And so, like, I never do any of the things. I'm never putting a fucking any sign that says I stand with.
So you're a problem now, though.
Yes, but here's the thing: we shouldn't be using that to promote who we are, because we shouldn't be like putting badges and patting ourselves on the back. You should just be a fucking good person in the first place. We should have been doing this shit before you earn social points for it. Like, that's the point.
Social capital.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Capital.
Just be a fucking good person, man. Like, I refuse to do that shit because I think it's demeaning to the values that I actually have. And if we all had them, we wouldn't need to fucking demand praise for it or seek to fit in more because of it. You know what I mean? So, sorry. When I hear about that shit, I go off. I hate that stuff, man.
You know, I feel you. I think as being aware of different viewpoints and, you know, if shit's really important to you and you're really fighting a war and you're really trying to like affect change within your space, within your community, your state, your country, whatever, I just feel like there's a specific way to move that doesn't necessarily entail the garnering of as much social capital as possible. You know, there's things to do that are actionable and maybe a little bit harder than the retweet or the meme that you're sharing with your friends that actually, or the lanyard that you're wearing. You know, maybe it's as simple as just living that.
Yeah.
And having that be who you are and being real with that across the spectrum of your relationships and your life. That is really lost on people.
Yeah.
And that ties back into like tribalism and
totally, man.
We're here and they're there and they're like, you know, and
how do you know who someone is? Because they'll tell you with the way they dress and the things they wear, and you know, it's like,
and the things they say and what they put in their Twitter profile and this, that, and the third. But it's like, but how are you living? We all interact with each other on such an internet-based global scale where it's like, I have to say this, that, and the third for you to know who I am, and now it's out there. And if you identify with this, then that's cool. And it's so strange because if you hop on there, it'll be like people will tell you exactly where what advantages there in that, and being so. I don't know. I guess I just don't understand. I do understand, but in terms of affecting change, in terms of having conversations with people, in terms of changing the hearts and minds of people, and like really making a difference, I think the tribal aspect of it is important in terms of garnering support. But I also think if you're actually trying to communicate with people on a human level that you don't agree with or don't see eye to eye with, there's an element of like, let's put all this other shit to the side and speak and communicate one to one and not just talk to hear, but listen and be and live. That I feel is completely I'm jaded, maybe, but everything feels everything feels performative to me.
Yes.
Everything feels performative.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's like a me thing or if it's like, if you're stating 100, like, and this is something I find with like musicianship as well, and artistry and fighting, even in general, because I'm interested in like all kinds of shit. Like I was interested in MMA. I was going to take a fight, and music.
Yeah, that's something.
Music,
that
all that kind of shit. Like
recently.
All that shit.
That's something we're going to talk about in the future too.
100%. But it's just like, okay, like the greats weren't necessarily on Instagram promoting themselves.
No,
they became known by beating ass.
Yeah.
50 fights, 100 fights, 50-2, 50-3, you know, just the greatest musicians. Like Jimmy had to go to fucking Europe. I'm pretty sure he had to go to England to get known because motherfuckers didn't care about him in America. So he went over there, busted ass over there, and became. It's like there's an essence of like effort and living what it is that you want to be and give to the world.
Yeah.
That is just overshadowed by how easy it is to type up a 70 character bio and just say, well, this is who I am. And then, you know, you cast that net, and then people who agree with you will flock to you, and people who disagree will also flock to you to try to troll you. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like the creative writing 101 for like first year undergrads, which is show, don't tell. And it should be converted a little bit because show can also mean, well, where you land you. But what I mean to say is like, don't project, you know?
Be the thing.
Just be a thing. Be a thing that you think is worthwhile. Be a thing that you think makes the world a better place, or that at least doesn't hurt anyone. And don't worry about trying to garner the attentions of others, to garner the respect of, well, maybe respect. I understand people wanting respect, but don't try and get these dopamine injections from being talking right speak or being in the right team, and that's something that I think is really important to hold on to, and I think it's increasingly a hard thing. It's hard publicly to be that way. I think to be true to yourself and to be what you think is right in a world that increasingly values appearances and teams. Dude, this has been a great conversation. We have to continue it though, because it didn't end. I don't know if we got more things answered or there's more questions, much like your
always more questions,
like your journey across the country.
Yeah,
we've barely talked about anything regarding to our streams. Where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/BlueAssegai, which is impossible. Motherfuckers have so much trouble with that.
I know.
I've been considering the name change, but I'm also like, nah, figure that shit out. ASSEGAI, BlueAssegai on Twitch, on Twitter, on Instagram.
It's a spear, okay? It's a spear.
It's a
spear. Come on.
You just poke people with it, and that's literally all it is. And it's blue. Because I like blue, clearly. And that's pretty much it.
Nice, man. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. You're the best, dude. Let's do this again.
Appreciate you. 100%.
All right. Take care, dude.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.